Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event this evening, Voices from the Frontline Ukraine. My name is Holly. I am the Interim Director of Fundraising at UK Med, and I'm going to introduce you to our panelists shortly. Just a quick housekeeping note, this webinar is being recorded. So just to make you aware of that. And please do say hello. So there's two boxes at the bottom of your screen. So there's a chat function. Please feel free to introduce yourselves. And then there is the Q&A function, which is where we'll be asking for your questions. So we're going to hear from our panelists first of all, but then we will be coming to you and your questions. First of all, we would like to know a little bit about you, where you're joining from and how you're involved in UK Med. So I'm going to launch a poll. Please tell us where in the world you are joining us from today, and also how you've become involved in UK Med. And then we get to hear a little bit about you. But wherever you're joining from and however you're involved, thank you so much for joining, and it's great to have you here. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to UK Med's CEO, David Wittick, who is going to be able to give us an overview of our programme in Ukraine and take us back to the start of the response just over 3 years ago. So David, over to you.
Thanks, Holly. Hopefully everyone can hear me. And thank you everyone for joining. I can see we've got about 80 something people, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for sparing some time on your Monday evening to spend a bit of time with us. And to what I know we've got a really great panel pulled together from some of our team in Ukraine, people who have been putting in a huge amount of work in some quite difficult circumstances in order to bring really vital assistance to areas of Ukraine. But before we dive into that, I think I just also want to highlight some of the other places in which UK Med is working, which have been added to even today. So just if people aren't aware, and I can see from some of the participants, there's a lot of familiar names on here, but some perhaps less familiar ones. So for those of you that don't know UK Med that well, UK Med is the UK's only emergency medical team. So that's verified by the World Health Organization. We're one of 40 teams around the world that respond to crises and to medical emergencies. And at the moment, UK Med is responding, and I had to write this down to remind myself, frankly, but UK Med is responding in Lebanon, Syria, Sudan, South Sudan, Congo, that's Democratic Republic of Congo, Gaza, Ukraine, and as of a couple of hours ago, we'll be responding to Macedonia, to the nightclub fire that happened yesterday. So we will be sending a team out to that one. And of course, some of those are quite small responses, just a few people. Some of them are larger, and some of them are really very significant. And between us all, the team in UK Med has responded to the needs of just over 400,000 people in the last year. So that's 400,000 patient visits, I should say. It's very difficult to tell whether they're all individual people, but certainly 400,000 patient visits, of which a pretty significant number was delivered by the team in Ukraine. And just to go back very briefly to a few years ago, to February and March 2022, when we first entered Ukraine following the Russian invasion, and I'm going to be very clear, it was a Russian invasion for everybody that has any doubt after the discussions of the last few weeks. It was very clear what had happened in Ukraine, and UK Med, along with a few other international organizations, decided that we really had to intervene, and made our way across the country to the east, to Dnipro, and to Kharkiv, and to Pokrovsk, which of course is the center of a lot of the action right now. And as we were traveling east, there were a very, very large number of people traveling west, many of whom left Ukraine, some of whom reside still in Western Ukraine and areas outside of where they had been living. However, there were still people left behind. As with any mass population movement, these things are vastly imperfect. And there are always some people who either choose to remain or cannot leave. And those people are usually the most vulnerable in society. The elderly, the disabled, the people who have little money and few resources and possibly no family in other bits of Ukraine to go to. And so one of the significant pieces of work that the Ukraine team have been doing is undertaking primary health and mental health support clinics to frontline villages in which there is still a residual population, the people who cannot leave and those people who are staggeringly vulnerable in the face of a conflict that rages around and at times across them. And it's the UK Med team who are providing a significant amount of absolutely essential support to those communities, for whom it is very difficult for the standard Ministry of Health to provide healthcare across all of them. There are simply too many and they're too dispersed. The second area of work for UK Med was one, again, which we I think discovered or fell across or in the process of discussion with the Ministry of Health and a lot of others, found that there was quite a lot of work to do in terms of training and capacity building. The Ukrainian medical system and Ukrainian first responders are exceptionally professional. However, they were hit with quite extraordinary set of circumstances in which suddenly fire and rescue services, police, ambulance, civilian ambulance services suddenly had to deal with a lot of widespread conflict-related trauma, for which many were unprepared. And we, along with other organizations and indeed the Ukrainian system themselves, have been delivering quite a lot of training in how to deal with mass casualties, how to deal with various elements of combat trauma. And then the third element for us was secondary care, and particularly surgical trauma care. Um, and an amount of the reconstructive, the rebuilding of limbs that follows on from serious trauma, and which may well be completely life-changing and certainly limb-saving for a number of people. And that includes a lot of the nursing care and other hospital sustaining assistance, including equipment, supplies, a lot of which we delivered in the first few months of the conflict. Um, and then lastly, I just want to remind everyone, if you need reminding, of the importance of Ukraine to all of us. Um, this is obviously an event of huge significance in terms of international politics. And I think we can all see this playing out on our nightly news, not only over the last few years, but obviously with increased intensity in the last few weeks. And one of the things that I think we wanted to bring everyone back to with this event, was, first of all, to, I think, remind everyone that, events like Ukraine and attaining some kind of just peace in Ukraine and certainly taking us away from the current situation, these issues are not just the playthings of great men. They involve real people on the ground. And real people have real problems. And in the case of Ukraine, these problems are of enormous significance. And a lot of the support that is delivered by UK Med and team is completely life-saving or life-changing for a lot of people. And I just wanted to bring it back to that issue. And so with that having been said, I'd like to go back to Holly, who will introduce us around the panel. And thanks again to everyone for joining. And I'm sure it will be an enlightening, interesting, and I hope enjoyable. Thank you. Holly.
Thank you so much, David. for that introduction. And just a note before I introduce us to the panel, we are having some issues with the chat and Q&A function, so please bear with us, and we're trying to fix that so you can put your questions to us. We will find an alternative way for you to submit your questions if we can't get that enabled, so bear with us for that one. But first of all, I'm going to hand us over to our amazing panel, and thank you all so much for making time this evening. I'm going to first of all come to Nasser. If you can introduce yourself, Nasser, and just talk about your work as you see it in the coming months.
Thank you very much, Holly. Yes, my name is Nasser Muflahi. I am the new country director for UK Med Ukraine. I've been in country since January the 6th. It's a different context because I've been working within the humanitarian sector for over 20 years. I've worked in countries like Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. This is a quite unique context for me because even as we speak now, I'm being told, go and hide, there are drones. We are actually under attack as we speak now. It's a difficult task, and it's more so for my colleagues who are in Zaporizhia and Kharkiv than myself in Dnipro. So it is sometimes a bit overwhelming to understand what's going on. Next morning, you see the mass casualties, etc. So it is very difficult. It's one of the, I would say, one of the most dangerous places we have worked. We do work on the front line. We, as David has already alluded to, we do
Okay, I think we might have lost Nasser there for a moment. And I think that this will be a feature of the webinar this evening. We have had panelists that said that they might be expecting electricity. Oh, Nasser, you're back with us.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we have these interruptions. Yeah, it's because of the attack. Sorry about that. So we worked on the front lines. We have mobile health units going daily to as far as they can on the front line without actually putting themselves in danger. Sometimes as close as 10 to 5 kilometers from the fighting. What we do also is we look after those people who cannot or do not receive assistance, cannot reach assistance, are too vulnerable, too old, disabled, etc. We also dispense medicines. We help the authorities and some of the hospitals with donations of hospital goods and equipment. We also do the training for them. In a lot of cases, we do mass casualty event training, ultrasound training, etc. We do all that, as well as sending people like Jay, who will be coming in a bit to do some expert analysis of what's required in terms of the healthcare, whether we're doing it right or whether we need to step it up or do some more. I'm going to stop talking now and pass it back to Holly, who will choose somebody else.
Thank you so much, Nasser, for that introduction. And talking of training, I'm going to pass to Anastasia. Anastasia, if you could introduce yourself and your work, please.
Yes, hello, my name is Anastasia. I'm a training manager of UCOMAT in Ukraine. Till today, so we trained from the beginning up to 15,000 of people, which includes civilians and health workers as well. So for now in Ukraine, we are running out of first aid and trauma care training. We are doing PFA training offline and online for the regions which are completely occupied, but we still need to reach out to people to give them as much support as we can. We're also doing ultrasound training. We're doing trauma training, NCD, and infection control and wound management training. So for now, in average, we improved with health managers, with health care people. We improved in average 25% of their skill, even if their daily works and having this in their daily works kind of patients. We still have an area how to improve their skills And also for civilians, we are doing first aid and trauma care trainings and doing PFA, which is quite good. And the average percent of improving their skills is 16%, which give us a knowledge that it's really relevant and really needs for now in Ukraine, in Dnipro, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhia areas to give them their skills. Also, we donated near 3,000 first aid kits and near 6,000 of tourniquets to emergency service, to hospitals, to the teachers, and to another organizations which potentially can be under the damage or potentially would be under the attack, so they will understand and will use the equipment to protect themselves and to keep them and their colleagues or friends more alive in case of something bad happens.
Thank you so much, Anastasia, for that insight into your work. An update for our audience. So the chat function is not working, but the Q&A function is. So please feel free to submit your questions and we will hear from each of our panelists and then we will have the chance to ask questions. So I'm going to come to Dimitro now, if that's okay, for you to introduce yourself and your work. You're on mute, Dimitro. There we go.
Thank you, Holly. Hello, I'm Dimitri Zabelin, a psychologist. I have been working in UK Med since October 2022. Firstly, as like a psychologist in the field, now as a MHPSS supervisor. And let me introduce our MHPSS team. These are 6 psychologists of mobile clinics and 2 psychologists in the psychological support program for medical staff in hospitals, and 6 community health workers. They provide psychological support to the beneficiaries in mobile clinics and, if necessary, redirect them to psychologists. Psychologists conduct separate sessions on request and group events, such as groups of psychological support in communities and psychoeducation. They constantly control the condition of the beneficiaries and identify people with disorders for their further redirection. Our psychologists have a specialization of clinical psychology, and this allows them to better interact with our doctors. In this way, we treat the consequences of distress, for example, better, because we always use several approaches. Separately, I would like to underline the program of psychological support for medical staff. This is a unique project for Ukraine. The project exists for 8 months in the regional hospital Zaporizhia. We provide psychological support for medical staff. This is our care for those who care. These medical workers provide assistance to the wounded and those who suffered from shellings. Currently, we are expanding this activity and integrating this project into another hospital. We follow the WHO and the ASK recommendations and constantly carry out more structured psychological measures. They reduce the level of psychological stress in the communities, help to overcome stigmatization, identify those who need individual psychological assistance. There's groups with elements of art therapy, storytelling, and other therapeutic methods, including CBT and trauma-focused CBT, of course. In addition, groups of interest are parent groups, youth groups, longevity groups. In short time, we saw excellent results of this approach and are ready to continue developing it. The principle is very simple. A human needs a human primarily, and then psychologist. If we have the necessary funds, we could get safe and convenient conditions for this and delegate our actions, create various support groups. And for the training of responsible people in the field, in the locations, we could additionally reach them scalable psychological interventions, for example, and then conduct supervisions and support. By the way, 2 of our psychologists are currently conducting problem management plus training in Zaporizhia in these days. So we have a team of a motivated specialist with extensive experience and constant support of our management. And I would like to add, excuse me, and I would like to add our priority is not only career, is not only salary. This is a quite not simple work emotionally and physically too. Often it is work with human grief. Often we work close to the front line, where no one goes, and our motivation here is a help for people. This is also the source of our inspiration, and we are ready to productive work in the future as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dimitro, for that really compelling account of your work. I'm now going to move to Dr. Ilya and Anna, if I may, and ask you to introduce yourself and your work.
Good evening. Здравствуйте, меня зовут Илья, я родом из Запорожья. Это город, который находится всего в 30 километрах от линии боестолкновений. Я работаю доктором общей практики мобильной бригады ЮКМЕД и с сентября 2023 года являюсь частью этой гуманитарной медицинской миссии.
Hello everyone, my name is Ilya and I'm from Zaporizhia, a city which is located just 30 kilometers from the front line. I work as a GP in the mobile team of UKMed and have been a part of this humanitarian medical mission since September 2023.
С самого начала работы ЮКИМЕД Запорожской области я принимал участие в создании и развитии этого направления. Мы проводили исследования потребностей населения прифронтовых территорий, оценивали состояние медицинской инфраструктуры и выявляли основные проблемы и потребности, с которыми сталкивались люди.
From the very beginning of UKMed's work in the Zaporizhia region, I have been involved in establishing and developing this initiative. We have conducted multiple researches on the needs of people living in the frontline areas, assessed the state of medical infrastructure, and identified the main challenges they face.
Ситуация в этих населенных пунктах критическая. Люди оказались буквально брошены на произвол судьбы из-за постоянных обстрелов и разрушений. А они живут без электроэнергии, связи, воды. Там нет магазинов и аптек, а доступ к медицинской помощи практически отсутствует, так как многие доктора либо были мобилизированы, либо вынуждены покинуть эту территорию вследствие своей безопасности.
The situation in these villages is critical. People have been literally abandoned to their fate. Due to constant shelling and destruction, they lived without electricity, communication, or even water. There are no stores or pharmacies, and access to medical care is nearly non-existent. Many doctors have been either conscripted to army or being forced to leave their areas.
Сегодня в Запорожье работают 3 мобильные бригады медицинские ЮКИМЕД. Мы разработали сеть из 20 локаций, расположенных всего в 5-20 километрах от линии боестолкновения. И ежедневно наши команды выезжают в эти села, обеспечивая медицинскую и психологическую помощь тем, кто не может добраться до больницы.
As of today, 3 UK-made mobile units operate in Zaporizhia. We have developed a network of 20 different locations, which are situated just 5 to 20 kilometers from the front line. Every day, our teams travel to these villages, providing medical assistance to those who cannot reach a hospital.
Каждая наша мобильная бригада состоит из доктора, медсестры, психолога и социального работника. Такой состав позволяет нам не только лечить острые хронические заболевания, но и оказывать психологическую поддержку людям, переживающим войну непосредственно в близости от линии боестолкновения, помогать с социальными вопросами и даже простыми бытовыми проблемами. Мы работаем с самыми уязвимыми слоями населения, пожилыми людьми, маломобильными пациентами и семьями с маленькими детьми.
Each of our mobile unit consists of a doctor, a nurse, a psychologist, and a social health worker. This team composition allows us not only to treat acute and chronic illnesses, but also to offer psychological support to people living through war near the front line, assist with their social issues, and even help with some basic daily needs. We work with the most vulnerable population, the elderly people with limited mobility, and families with children.
Основную часть наших пациентов составляют люди старше 60 лет, и подавляющее большинство из них – это женщины. Многие из них живут в одиночестве, без возможности получить надлежащую медицинскую помощь, уход или поддержку. В условиях отсутствия инфраструктуры и постоянной опасности они особенно уязвимы на сегодняшний день. Наша задача не просто лечить их, но и давать им ощущение заботы и безопасности, насколько это возможно.
The majority of our patients are over 60 years old, and most of them are women. Many of them live alone without access to medical care, any assistance or support. I'm sorry. In the environment with no infrastructure and constant danger, they're particularly vulnerable. Our mission is not only to treat them, but also give them a sense of care and security.
Мы проводим приемы пациентов в местных фельдшерско-акушерских пунктах ФАПах, а также посещаем маломобильных людей на дому. Наша работа критически важна для этих людей. Мы не просто оказываем медицинскую помощь, мы даем им надежду, поддержку и чувство о том, что они не брошены на произвол судьбы и они не забыты.
We see patients in local clinics or ambulatory centers and visit some people with limited mobility in their homes. Our work is critically important for these individuals. We are not just providing medical assistance, we are giving them hope, support, and reassurance that they are not have been forgotten.
Также хочу сказать, что для продолжения нашей важной миссии нам очень нужна помощь. Финансирование позволяет нам закупать лекарства, медицинские расходники, топливо для поездок в данной локации, и поддержка доноров – это шанс для тысяч людей получить жизненно необходимую медицинскую и психологическую поддержку и в целом помощь. Мы верим, что вместе мы можем сделать еще больше. Спасибо за внимание.
However, to continue our mission, we need help. Funding allows us to purchase medicine, medical supplies, and fuel for trips to the remote areas. Donor support is a chance for thousands of people to receive life-saving medical care, and we believe that together we can do even more. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ilya, and thank you so much, Anna, for your translation. I think you've given us a real indication of the work of the mobile medical units, so thank you so much. Last but not least, I'm going to move to Jay. If you could introduce yourself, Jay, and talk about the work that you've been doing in Ukraine.
Sure, Holly, thank you very much. My name is Jay Matthews. I'm an operating department practitioner by trade, or a theatre nurse to those that are not in the UK. I've deployed with UK Med a multiple number of times, the last couple to Somalia, Gaza, and now to Ukraine as of last week. I was part of the surgical teams that are embedded into two of the hospitals in Zaporizhia. There's hospital number 5 in the Oblast Regional Hospital. We're seeing a lot of civilians and some military people, both injured through conflict and through day-to-day life trauma. But lots of people, civilians being bombed in their homes, being shelled in their workplaces, and coming in with what David said before is injuries that are life and limb threatening. These are daily occurrences. I know in the regional hospital there are a vast amount of limb injuries and amputations, both to civilian and military personnel. They are overstretched currently, understaffed. As David touched on earlier, there's a lot of displacement. So I was working with nurses who have unfortunately lost family members, husbands and brothers and children, and they still turn up to work to support the national people of Ukraine. But there's fewer and fewer people now. So there was, on the wards, there's one nurse to 28 patients. There's one lead nurse in theatres. They don't have appropriate resources. So it's not just the staff they're missing the equipment. I was in multiple operations where equipment just stopped working. So we're talking about electrosurgery, suction, and just not having the equipment available that they require. Having to reuse single-use instrumentation which is not ideal in any circumstance, and certainly not here, where there's high complexity surgeries going on, which they clinically they manage well, as those are extremely professional people, and they really are clinically astute to what they're doing. The problems they have are the resources, the staffing, the support in general in terms of systems and managing of information and people. So being overwhelmed and not having the correct equipment and not having the right surgical instrumentation means that they have to find workarounds and be more creative and inventive in the support of the people of Ukraine. I know that our surgical teams have been doing great work embedded into the national hospitals in Zaporizhia, where I was, but there's definitely a need to be close to the front lines and stabilization points, which is something I think that we would like to be involved with. I know that having been on the UK Med MCI training, which is great, I've also received the MCIs from the front line, from areas that have been bombed, military units that have been attacked, and we've had up to 14 patients at a time come into the hospital and having to manage that. I really do believe that being engaged with the patients earlier would be real benefit to the people. I think it would have real positive outcomes on their mortality and in their limb-saving instrumentation management of patients. So I really feel like in those things that we've seen or that I've seen in Ukraine, that's something that would really, really benefit the people there, have a really impactful support to them, which is what they really, really need. People have already touched on the mobile medical units, which are doing great work. I really do rate that, bringing care when there isn't none. And I really think being out front is where we need to be. There is so much in terms of just so much in terms of what the people are going through. We've heard about people having power cuts tonight. We've heard about people losing loved ones, people who are working in hospitals who have already been displaced. They try and stay to help people, and I think it's an unbelievable kudos and credit to the people that do that. It just shows how much they care and how much they want to help, despite the fragilities and the difficulties that they're facing in the regular attacks out there. So surgically, there's a lot going on. People having to adapt to life-changing events, whether they survive or whether they lose someone or whether it's a limb. Everyone's being affected hugely by what's going on, and it's been a real privilege to work with UK Med in trying to assist and help those that require healthcare and those that are working in healthcare in Zaporizhia. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jay, for your views and thank you for highlighting the work that you've been doing with the teams in the hospitals. So we have heard from all of our panelists now, and we are going to move to questions. And we're going to kick off, I think, with a question that is related to other headlines that you might have seen in the news, which is the change in the funding landscape. So if I may, I want to put Anna's question to Nasser and or David. And that question is, as international and donor support might decrease, how do you envision transitioning from emergency to a sustained system so that the Ukrainian health system can operate without donor support? So if I might put that to Nasser or David.
I mean, I can talk and then David can complement, or David, you can talk and I can complement. What would you like to do?
You go first, Nasser.
You go first.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I find it difficult given the aid cuts, and we know that aid cuts now are around 60%. Given these cuts, it would be foolhardy of me to say that we can replicate all that the Ukrainian health system, unless there is an enduring peace and Ukraine is able to go back to its normal life and bring in, and its economy kicks in and is able to bring in money. We can't go back to a normal healthcare system. It will continue to require assistance. They are struggling now, and they will continue to struggle if it doesn't change in their favor. And when I mean in their favor, go back to how it was previously with the peace. I think that's why we're having this event, to highlight these facts to the audience, to tell them that we need your assistance. As a matter of fact, we need your assistance more than ever now because of the aid cuts. Our aim, and UK Med is unique because our aim is not to build an empire, not to be here forever. We do have a short and finite lifetime, and we want to be here as short as possible and hand over to a well-equipped and well-trained and well-educated people that can do the job if they've got the equipment. They don't have that, and they don't have the bodies as well, because as colleagues have said, the bodies have gone to join the fighting. A lot of doctors have gone, and a lot of other people have gone abroad, and that's the real problem. In terms of, we've also mentioned, we didn't mention something else in terms of, and the big issue, and Jay may add to it, is antimicrobial infection. This is a huge issue here, and this is something that also needs to be looked at and cannot be contained within the Ukrainian health system alone. Sorry, David, did you want to compliment or say anything else?
No, I thought that was very well put. So I will reiterate for about 30 seconds, which is UK Med are international surge, which means we go in when we're requested, when the system is overwhelmed. And as NASA very eloquently pointed out, the system in Ukraine is not overwhelmed because it is a poor system, or because they simply don't have enough doctors and nurses or enough hospitals, or because they don't know what they're doing. The system is overwhelmed because of a war that has been going on very intensely for the last few years, but frankly has been going on for longer than that. And once that war ends, if there is a sustainable peace, then yeah, we can envisage the Ukrainian health system returning to a semblance of normality over time, but it will take time. And I think we do also have to remember that there are a very large number of rehabilitation cases and requirements. So people who have suffered life-changing injuries who will require help and support in order to carry on the rest of their lives, and in some cases help and support for the rest of their lives. So the health system has been hit extremely hard, and it will continue to have needs going into the future. But you know, I think it all hinges, as NASA said, on whether there is a sustainable peace. Holly.
Great, thank you. And now, if I may, I'm going to put this question to Ilya and Dimitro. So, Anna, if you could perhaps translate this question. So, are there any health-related needs that you're seeing that you're not able to respond to, but would like to if you could? And that's an anonymous question. So, Ilya and Dimitro, please.
Питання наступне: чи щодо взагалі особливих якихось потреб або особливих якогось обладнання необхідного для надання необхідної допомоги населенню? Є якісь побажання чи потреби?
Ну, на сегодняшний день у нас аптека максимально укомплектована. У нас открыта лабораторная диагностика, которая с каждым днем расширяет лабораторный перечень анализов. Из таких моментов, это, как я называл, что у нас большинство это женщины 60+, у которых бывают нарушения функций тазовых органов и, соответственно, ввиду старости, ослабления мышц, что у них недержание. Это было бы неплохо, чтобы мы поставляли людям по показаниям урологические прокладки или памперсы.
So for now the situation is the following. So we have all the medicine, so we do blood tests as well for people who need this, but the situation is kind of challenging for elderly women who has some issues with so who have some health issues, and they would need, it would be best to have them some like urine pads or pampers or something. So it would be nice to have this support as well. So it's not only medicine and tests, but also support like that.
Thank you. And Dimitro, did you want to add to that?
Yep, give me a hand, please, Anna. Я хочу сказать, что у нас на данный момент сейчас мы получили полную поддержку всех наших начинаний в плане мероприятий Mental Health. И вот на данный момент пожелание просто держать это на уровне, чтобы это так и оставалось, потому что люди привыкли к этому в определенной степени. От этого зависит их выздоровление, и нам бы хотелось сохранить этот уровень. Вот, хотел бы пожелать это. И еще я бы хотел добавить, что тут звучал вопрос о том, как долго мы будем продолжать поддержку. Я бы хотел добавить, что с точки зрения психологии, как психолога, с окончанием военных действий, на которые мы надеемся, наша работа как психологов только еще начнется, несмотря на нашу загруженность сейчас.
So the comment from Dmitro, so basically, as we have all the opportunities of the trainings, so we managed to do all the trainings based on mental health trainings, which were needed to our beneficiaries, and the suggestion is to keep it on the same level. And all the beneficiaries, they're happy to have these trainings, and he suggests to keep it on the same level because the level is really high. So, and he would like to have it on the same one. So in order to continue the delivery of this support, which is needed to our to our people. And one more addition, there was a question about if we're stopping our work when the war ends. So the point there is that when the conflict is over, the work for psychologists is only starting. So we will have even more cases in the end of all this, and we would like to continue our work in this field.
Thank you, Dimitro. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Ilya. Okay, so following on from that, and I think that we touched on this in some of the panelists' introduction, and this is an anonymous question, and I'll put this to any of our Ukrainian colleagues. You talked about the kind of the impact on your own mental and physical health, and this is difficult work. So how does the organisation support this, and what are the gaps and challenges you see? So maybe Nasser, I could come to you first of all, and then I could ask Anna to put that to Dimitro and Ilya. If we still have Nasser, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely. You still have me. I mean, honestly, mental health in humanitarian work is not unique to Ukraine. But we do, and as humanitarians have progressed and understood that, and organizations have understood that it does have a mental effect on all of us. There are psychologists open to us. There are lines we can call, we can chat to people, we talk to each other, we comfort each other. So there are ways of handling it. There are ways of handling it even more for us internationals, because we tend to take breaks and leave the country. It is a bit more difficult for our national colleagues. So I'd like somebody from our national colleague to speak on this.
Thank you, Nasser. So Ilya, Dimitro, or Anastasia, would you like to speak to looking after your own mental and physical health?
Що добавити?
Так, зараз буквально секундочку перекладу. Оце наступне питання було щодо того, як взагалі організація піклується про психологічне здоров'я працівників. От ви просто наголошували на тому, що робота такого формату вона дуже вимотує, так дуже складна емоційно. Тобто, як організація допомагає вам справлятися з певними, можливо, психологічними проблемами, які у вас можуть виникнути?
Ну, у нас хорошая страховая поддержка, страховая помощь в том плане, что если вдруг какие-то у нас у сотрудников возникают проблемы как и ментального характера, так и физического, мы обращаемся по страховой и нам оказывают хорошая квалифицированная помощь. И такие моменты, как у нас тимбилдинги есть, мы проводим для офисов, внутри офиса, так для улучшения климата в коллективе. В целом у нас очень дружный коллектив. Мы стараемся и в поле, и в офисе, когда работаем, поддерживать и хорошо коммуницировать друг с другом.
So the first point that we have really good insurance, and in case we need any psychological or medical support, we can contact them and receive everything we need according to our needs at that moment. Additionally, we have different team building activities for our offices. So we can go somewhere and have some time together to build closer relationship and to improve working environment. And also we do try when we're in the field or somewhere or in the office, so we're trying to support each other. If anything happens, we're remaining as a big team which is supportive and helpful in any moment.
Thank you. Dimitri, do you want to come in on that one as well?
Two words, a bit of. Я бы еще хотел добавить к тому, что сказал Илья, что да, действительно у нас есть поддержка и от нашего руководства, возможность обратиться за психологической поддержкой. В то же время мы стараемся действительно поддерживать благоприятную атмосферу в командах, потому что люди устают от эмоций, и лишние негативные эмоции, они никому не нужны. А наша тимбилдинговая активность, она часто бывает направлена на обсуждение профессиональных вопросов, которые помогают нам, опять же, с мотивацией. Как говорил Виктор Франкл, когда знаешь зачем, то преодолеешь любые как.
So Dmitry would like to add just one more point to Ilya's saying. So basically, we are trying to keep the best and good working environment. So in order that everyone feels good at work, so anyone nobody face any problem because this work is really emotional and everyone needs some time to relax. So they try to keep this emotional level on the same one. So additionally, our team building activities, they not only to build some better environment, but to build some professional capacities. So, for example, we can discuss some working issues or to find some new solutions, some new methodics that can help in the future. Ой, що там ще забула трошки?
Виктора Франкла. Мотивация.
Yeah, and as Viktor Frankl said,
Когда вы знаете зачем,
if you know why, you will fight all house. So yeah, so this helps. It helps with motivation for all workers, to all the team. So these team building activities, they're really to try to do it frequently and to have this opportunity to meet together and to build these capacities and motivation to raise motivation level.
Thank you so much for your answers and for the work that you're doing under really difficult situation. Now, Anastasia, may I come to you? I have a question from another anonymous question, which asks, do you have any specific trauma training for nurses? If you could take that question, please.
Yes, so last December 2024, we start to implement a specific training for nurses. This is called infection control and wound management, which were completely designed specifically for that audience to give them more opportunity to improve their skills in primary health system, in emergency department, and in secondary level. So we have equipment and we have a 2 day trainings, which includes practical, theoretical, and simulation parts specifically for that middle level of healthcare workers.
Great. Thank you so much, Anastasia. That's really helpful. And now, Jay, I don't know whether you can speak to this, but we have had a question, and I'm coming to you as you've been working, obviously, in operating theatres. And what do you see that is the role for physiotherapy moving forward in relation to limb salvage and amputation, for example? If I could put that question to you.
Yeah, thanks. That's brilliant. I managed to spend a few hours with the physio team in the hospital. They are quite busy. I didn't get to see their clinical accolades per se and seeing what they were managing to do and what they were actually dealing with while I was with them. But I know they are busy. I know that they have more cases than they can handle. And physio is one of those things that's so important, but often an afterthought, as it is the last treatment, so to speak. And so I know that they could, that would always be something that would be useful to them. I can't really say, what their clinical exact skills were like, and I can't say their exact workload, but I do know when I saw their books and they showed me the patients they had coming in, they were full for weeks on weeks on weeks and just had more patients coming. So they are busy. There's not a lot of them. And I think with a lot of these areas, there's always room for bolstering in terms of, techniques and how to manage things that, yes, they started to see over the last few years, but it's maybe something they weren't exposed to before that. And often we all sort of scramble to make do, and then we can always use a little bit of extra support to help guide us through that. So that's all I can give on that, really, I'm afraid. Sorry, Holly, and sorry to the questionnaire as well.
No, thank you, Jay. I'm aware that we don't have a physio on the call, I'm afraid, to take that in more detail, but thank you for giving us that answer. And now another question from Alexandra, which I'm going to put to NASA initially, but then perhaps other colleagues can join in responding. So what medical items, equipment do you see is most in need in frontline areas that are best being brought in from the UK, i.e. they're too expensive or they can't be obtained in Ukraine? NASA, are you here? There we are.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's a very good question. I'm not the best person to answer that. I think Jay may also be better than me to answer it, worked in the hospital. But there is a question there that I also saw, which I'd like to answer. It's about doing bloods for hypertension in the field. Yes, we do. We have mobile labs. We collect the bloods and we do these tests as soon as we can. It would actually, it is very difficult to get mobile testing units, blood units. Those are in need. Yes, those are the kits that would be best at the moment to help us test for hypertension, strokes, etc. Those are the things that we are missing at the moment. But let me hand over to Jay for the other stuff.
So kind of you, Nassar. Thank you. In terms of, I know that 30 kilometers may seem like frontline, but there's always a front of frontline, if that makes sense. So in terms of the front line and the stabilization points, I didn't get a chance to go to those. But I can tell you from in the hospitals that we have electrosurgical units, so diathermy machines breaking down constantly. We have suction machines breaking down constantly. They're gowns and drapes that aren't used to get put into a re-sterilization to be used again. There's constant changing of consumables because they're all on donation. So, you know, I know you asked about expensive equipment that they can't afford, but it's very much all equipment, even coming down to the tablets they use for cleaning or the clinical wipes. They can change week to week or run out completely. We had a week where we ran out of clinical wipes, and then it's back down to rags and alcohols and sprays and detergents, and it's not ideal when you're trying to manage these sort of areas with few resources to hand. In terms of, they have C-arms, which are okay, they work at the moment, which is good. But in terms of pretty much all of the theatre equipment, so diathermy machines, so they're reusing all the diathermy blades and all the pencils, so the finger touch switches, if you know what they are. Swabs are really rationed to try and make them go as far as possible, and they have to fold and make their own, so they can't just be ordered in and held. Like I say, there's a lot of equipment that would be really useful. So yeah, in terms of equipment on site, I've written to the team, and I've written up a donations list, which I don't have in front of my eyes right now, otherwise I'll just reel through all of it. But I've written up quite an extensive materials list and equipment that I think would go quite a long way without having to break the bank as well. I think there's, you know, you can focus on these things and do a good job of getting things in, and there wouldn't be a lot of training required because they know how to use these equipments. They just don't have working ones or enough of the consumables to use them. So hopefully that answers that question as succinctly as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. Well, thank you for all of your questions. And I'm just going to end with two final points. So first of all, I wanted to share with the panel a message rather than a question, which is to pass on to Dimitru and Dr. Ilya. It's Dr. Marion here. I visited you in November 2023. It is a pleasure to see you again and hear about your important work. When I visited, I was humbled to observe your professionalism, always focusing on your patients. Yet you have all had your own personal experiences of the war over the last 3 years and suffered losses. I know there has been an increase in attacks again, and I am particularly pleased to hear about the support your team are giving to health worker colleagues. Dimitri, I think of you all often. Please give my best wishes to the whole team. And I think that Marion's words are kind of, you know, echoed by everyone that has joined here today. Thank you so much for your vital work and everything that you are doing in incredibly difficult circumstances. And we have one question, which is, how can I help? How can I get involved? Well, you can help very directly, actually. If you've joined this call today and you want to support the work of the team, please do consider a donation. Just to put into context how your support helps. So the mobile medical units that we heard, who are providing this absolutely vital care that no other providers are providing, it costs around £10,000 a month for one of those teams, and they could see around 200 people, and that's just £50 per consultation. And that could be the difference between somebody getting their medication that keeps them alive or not. And so every donation, large or small, really does make a difference. And I know that it shows the teams who are doing the hard work that we care, and this is important to us too. So if you want a way to help, please do consider a donation. Please share the word with your friends and colleagues and family. And thank you all so much for joining us this evening. But, you know, I can see Nasser there with a final word.
Sorry, Holly, I just wanted to say something. Not so long ago, because I'm originally from the Middle East, a lot of the doctors we have in the Middle East studied in Ukraine. So not so long ago, Ukraine was producing a huge amount of doctors. There was a lot of students. Kharkiv Medical University, which we partner with, was one of the main providers of clinicians in the Middle East and in other parts of the world. So people shouldn't forget that. I'd like to remind people that they're very, very capable here. Yes, and I would like to see it get back to that. That's my last word. Sorry, Holly.
No, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I know it's very late, especially for our team in Ukraine now. So thank you for your time. If you have further questions, please, feel free to get in touch with us by email. David, you've come off mute. Did you have a final word?
No, simply just to thank everyone for coming along and spending their evening with us.
Thank you so much, and we'll leave it there. Thanks to the team in Ukraine for the amazing work that you're doing. It really is truly kind of humbling. And thank you everyone for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone,
Thank you very
cheers.
much.
Cheers.